Are you a songwriter? Are you looking to turn your songwriting passion into a full-time gig? Whether you are just at the start of your songwriting journey or a seasoned industry professional, this show is made for you. Welcome to the Songwriter Show, bringing together songwriting news, interviews, and community. Now, welcome your host, Sarantos.
Thank you for tuning in, and welcome back to the Songwriter Show, right here on Reality Radio 101. I'm your host, Sarantos. I'm a solo music artist who's been writing lyrics for as long as I can remember. Words are very important to me, and that's why I'm thrilled to host this show for you every Tuesday evening. I believe in my heart every song is a story. Tonight's guest is Eva. Touted as an artist to watch by Billboard magazine, Eva's vocal prowess and phenomenal range has garnered international recognition. She possesses an uncanny ability to switch seamlessly from pop-style vocals into full operatic singing within the same song. She's universally applauded as a rare crossover singer, songwriter, and vocal coach.
And now, welcome this week's special guest.
Welcome to the show. How you doing tonight, Eva?
I'm good, Sarantos. How are you?
I'm doing great. So thank you so much for being on the show. You have a great story, and I would love to share it with the world.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So tell the audience a little bit about what got you down this road. How'd you get started?
Well, I always loved music, and I had a music-loving family who played instruments and played a lot of music around the house. And they got me out singing on stage when I was 9. I didn't even know I had a voice, but I apparently sang around the house. And I thought I was going to be an opera singer. And then I started to get a lot of opportunities to sing pop music and in more popular settings. And learned that I could actually write songs. I got invited to write songs with people and realized I had something to say. And I loved it. So I decided to follow that road instead.
That's great. I love what you just said, Eva, that you found you had something to say. I think that's so important because even when I was doing this my first couple of years, you think you have something to say, but you really don't. And I think that's such a gift.
Thank you. I love lyrics the way you do, and I had a lot that I wanted to share in terms of my impressions of the world. And just like your song I was just listening to, I care a lot about love and peace and self-realization. And so I realized I actually had some decent ability to write stuff that people liked and that I liked, more importantly.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you play any musical instruments, or is it just voice?
I play the piano, and during the pandemic, I learned the guitar.
Okay, that's a great combination. That's a songwriter's dream, right? Either the piano or the guitar, so that's great that you can play both.
Yes, I've always loved piano, and I begged for lessons when I was a kid. So I started when I was about 10, and then was a little daunted by the guitar, thinking there's no way I could do both. But actually, the guitar is quite intuitive and super portable.
Yeah.
It's like having a friend along, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love guitar.
You don't like lugging around a big grand piano or something?
Oh, I'm a little bit of a purist when it comes to playing the piano in a show, so I lug around this Nord Piano 2, which is just about the best sound and action you could have, but that thing is a beast. It's so heavy.
I'm sure. I gotta admit, I kind of cheat. I just do the synth, and I feel like, okay, it could be a Steinway, Yamaha, whatever piano I want. It's a little more portable, I guess.
Yeah, the Nord is a synth too. It's really heavy, the mechanics of it to make it sound like a real piano.
Okay, gotcha.
But it's worth it. Feels so good.
Who has been your biggest inspiration to date, either musically or non-musically?
Paul McCartney.
Ah, great choice.
Easy.
Yeah, great choice. Have you done anything with him? Have you collaborated at all? Have you met him, or is it just a distant fancy?
Well, when I was 5, I have not yet met him. I very much hope I will. My dad brought home the movie Hard Day's Night.
Yeah.
And I was obsessed with that movie. I watched it every day before I went to school.
Sure.
I learned all the songs. I learned how to sing harmonies with the songs. And I just felt a kinship with Paul for some reason. And actually, I have dreams where he talks to me. And he has invited me on tour with the Beatles in my dreams. We've co-written songs. We've co-written songs in my dreams. We've been on a couple dates.
Yeah. You know what? That's awesome. It's like I'm listening to myself, their harmonies, I fantasize about gigging with them and writing with them too. So that's awesome.
I know. It's so amazing. They're a force.
Yeah. Did you watch a documentary?
I did, yes.
What did you think of it?
Haven't watched the third section of it, but I was impressed that Paul was very much like I am in a work setting, in that he likes to lead.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting that was also shooting him in the foot some with George.
Sure.
So sometimes your best asset can be your worst enemy too. And I felt his frustration that he really had this responsibility towards the Beatles and was a hard worker and had a lot of integrity and was still caught in this really, really tough situation as a 20-something.
Yeah.
That was a lot to be handling in one's 20s. I don't know how I would have handled something like that in my 20s.
Absolutely. I think everybody probably learned something and saw something different in that. The one thing I kind of changed in my art after that is I used to have a tendency to be like, all right, I've worked on this, I've worked on it a bunch, now I'm going to sing it, it's kind of done. Mm-hmm. Now what I do is I just kind of, like them, just every day, I work on it. And I'm like, oh, I like that chorus melody, but I'm going to redo it. And just keep building harmonies and keep working on it, as opposed to before I'd be like, all right, I got to get ready, I'm going to sing it today. And it was like, now it's like every day I just work on it. That really resonated with me. You don't have to just be like, all right, I sang it, it's done. You can keep working on it. You might get a better take.
That makes me feel better that you said that, because with some songs, I spend a ton of time on it. And sometimes I think, God, if I were a better musician, I wouldn't have to spend so much time on this. But now you're making me feel better about the fact that that's actually important to fine tune. And
I think it is. I've been taking songwriting lessons with Jai Josephs for like 6-7 years now, and he's taught me a ton. But the one thing that he'll critique a song, and it's just like little tweaks here and there, because you kind of get married to it and you like it, but other people looking at your work, and even the Beatles, right? It's about changing one line or changing one word, and it just takes it to a whole other level. So I think the Beatles were masters of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you get started with a song? Do you do lyrics, melody, drum groove, your piano? How do you start?
Usually I'll be half asleep and a song comes to me.
Okay.
So I'm lying in bed and I'm about to fall asleep and I get a melody in my head and some lyrics with it. And then I record it into my phone and then I pass out.
Yeah.
And sometimes I revisit those ideas and sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
But then other times, I have, like with the song Run that we just released, I had someone request as a fundraiser of mine for an album to write a song for her. And I interviewed her to see what she was fascinated by. What were her biggest impressions of life? And she said, well, I'd say my real happy place is when I go running in the north of Sweden in the winter when it's dark at noon, because I have the world to myself, and you would think it was dark and scary, but it's actually an amazing time to be out. So in the case of that song, I actually sat down and consciously wrote it, only having ideas for the lyrics, but not for the melody or the chords.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. If you had to give advice to someone just getting started, as a vocalist, as a songwriter, any advice you'd give them?
I would give them the advice that I was given when I first started, which was by a wonderful man I worked with named Paul Geluso. He said, just write lyrics. Just open the floodgates, turn the faucet on, write everything in a notebook that you can possibly think of. And that's what I did. And what was musings then started to turn into something a little more concrete and a little bit lyric sounding. And then I would go through that notebook and I would circle things that I liked and then bring them to a songwriting session. So just turn on the faucet and get those ideas out there, put the pen in your hand and write.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think, right, get started. So many people, I waited a good portion of my life till I got started, and I think a lot of people just never do, and that's a shame.
Another thing I would say is there's nothing wrong with co-writing. I actually do a lot of co-writing, and it's nice to have someone else to write with.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I enjoy that, yeah.
Okay. So I'll tell you what, tell us about this song we're going to hear in a minute here. What do you want us to take from it? What inspired it?
Well, it was inspired by my friend who runs in the north of Sweden, and it gave me this idea of being able to find light in darkness. And that was before the pandemic struck. And I had made a demo of it to send to her with producer Jaron Olewski. And then I called him and said, you know what, I think we should unearth this song and do it full production. And that's what we did. And he actually rebuilt the song, and it became very much, probably because we were both working on it in our home studios, about being able to make something beautiful while being literally on a lockdown at home.
That's great. All right, Eva, I'll tell you what, let's take a listen to it, and then we'll come back and talk some more, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome. All right, everybody, please check this out. Here we go.
Feel the pull of the dark on your window pane. You feel the cold start of every day. The quiet snow is a reckoning. You hide in the walls, imagine pain. Stepping out in the white glistening.
That was a great song. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That was cool.
I'm so glad you liked it. I'm really in love with that song. Jaron did incredible work on it. It's so beautiful.
For sure. You have a very interesting vocal style. How did you merge the two fields, and how did you come up with that?
I didn't know that I had two different kinds of voices, or I just took it for granted. So I was invited by a producer to come put opera vocals on one of his instrumental tracks. And then I started singing in my, quote, normal voice. And he said, whoa, 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 what is that? I didn't know you could do that. And I said, oh, that's just my whatever everyday singing voice, what I would use to sing along to the Beatles or something.
Sure.
Something like that. And he said, I really like that voice. So I explored it and started to learn a new way of singing that was a lot more based on words and communicating in a plain manner rather than opera, which is more of a heightened high art experience.
Yeah.
And along the way, I found some great teachers who taught me the mixed belt technique so I could sing in a more pop style. And then I started training method acting. And I have now honed a voice that I really love. And I would say what's really helped is my friend Camille Nata and I are shooting a video this Sunday. During the pandemic, we committed to doing an hour-long vocal warm-up every day with each other over Zoom. Mm-hmm. So a full theater warm-up, which her acting coach, Larry Moss, requests that all of his students do. And then we did a full singing warm-up. And that has really, that everyday practice of the singing, showing up no matter how I feel, I can do stuff with my voice now that I didn't know I could do. And I can communicate a lot because I think it's just so much a part of me from having used it so regularly.
That's the old trick, right? A little bit of practice every day is much better than doing a big session once a week.
Absolutely.
I think you doing that every day is just gold.
And we're so grateful because I always practice singing every day, but I didn't work on my speaking voice as well. And it's actually made a big difference to do the acting speaking voice training and to work with someone who is an actress. She's an actress, so she really wants to communicate in whatever she's doing. And in singing, we sometimes wind up in a tendency to try to sound good, but we don't necessarily communicate exactly what we're trying to say and who we're trying to say it to. And I've really learned the importance of that.
Yeah, I totally get it. And I think one thing you said is key too, is we don't think about our everyday lives, our other jobs, and speaking all day long. But I think that's a very common, I know in myself, it was a very common source of stress for me in terms of my voice would be tired at the end of the day of working all day. And I think when you do vocal therapy, you do these exercises, you strengthen your voice, and you focus on your speaking voice too, I think it goes to a whole other level.
You're right. You're really, really right. It does. I can't believe it. I just did a concert online. We did a virtual concert from a recording studio in Philadelphia. And I was just amazed how my voice came through because I was nervous. I don't usually perform in that kind of a setting. I don't usually have a camera right on my face. I'm used to performing for people who are, let's say, 20 feet away from me at the closest.
Yeah.
And my voice really took over and worked in a way that I didn't have to think about. I didn't have to micromanage it. I could really be in the moment and the feeling. And that has been a huge transition that actually, not that I wasn't doing that before, but I think having this long quiet of the pandemic, I was able to focus in on things like speak to an acting coach. How do I bring more of who I am into my voice? How do I develop the character of Eva? I started doing Alexander technique with a wonderful coach here in Los Angeles, where I am now. And it's changed my whole embodiment of the singing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like this thing, oh yeah, I do that when I'm singing, but when I'm not singing, I'm not a singer.
Yeah,
I really
get
feel
it. Yeah,
like
that's cool.
this is who I am all the time. It's all a part of me. It's not something I put in a closet when I'm done with a show and come back to it when I need it again.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, before we let you go here, what is the one thing you want to share with us? What's the newest thing you got coming out this year that you want to share with us?
Well, both the song Run, so I hope you will come listen on Spotify or anywhere you listen to music, or you can buy it on iTunes. We have a music video that we're shooting this week. I live in New York, but I'm out here in Los Angeles where it's 80 degrees and I'm sitting by the pool.
Look at her showing off her voice again.
So I'm loving that. So there'll be a video for people to check out too if they stay in touch with me. And we're also launching a Patreon. And I would just want people to know too that I'm an independent artist. And for all of us independent artists, in order to really get our music out there to reach people, it takes a lot more than just heart and determination. It does take funding. And I would be so grateful if people came to my Patreon and thought of making a donation and subscribing so they could be a part of my work, because it really is a group effort. And I know that this music is coming through me because I never intended to be what I am now. And I'm thrilled that I am, but I do feel like I'm channeling a message that is meant to reach people through me. And I'd like to be able to continue to reach people.
You know what? I think it's great, Eva. So I want to thank you so much for being on the show with us tonight.
It's my great happiness to be here with you. And thank you so much for what you do. It's so important.
Thank you so much. And I'd love to have you on the show again anytime.
Oh, thank you, Sarantos. That would be so much fun.
All right. So to all the fans out there, thank you so much for listening to a little bit of me and Eva. I hope everyone's unique story gets heard around the world. My name is Sarantos. Please join me every Tuesday night to hear other amazing artists share their fascinating behind-the-scenes stories right here at the Songwriter Show on Reality Radio 101. And tonight I'm going to leave you with one of my songs that just came out. It's the first all-Greek song I've ever released. It's called Ta δάκρυα μου, which means my tears fall. Have a great night, everyone. I love you guys. See you next Tuesday.
Τα δάκρυα μου πέφτουν για σένα. Μόνο για σένα. Στα μάτια σε κοιτάζω, τα χείλη σου θέλω να είναι πάλι δικά μου. Τα όνειρά σου διαβάζω, καδιάζω κι άλλο ποτήρι στην υγειά σου. Μήπως δεν ήταν γραφτό στην αγκαλιά σου να βρεθώ πάλι. Μπροστά το σπίτι σου περνώ και κλαίγομαι κοιμισμένος κάθε βράδυ. Την αγκαλιά μου δεν την έχεις ανάγκη. Δίπλα σου δεν με θέλεις πάλι. Τα χεράκια μου δεν τα κρατάς και τα ματάκια μου δεν τα κοιτάς. Τα ματάκια μου δεν μπορούν, τα δάκρυα μου πέφτουν. Συντροφιά δεν χρειάζεσαι αυτή την όμορφη μαύρη βράδια. Για άλλους στολίζεσαι, ανοίγεις τις φληγές μου τόσο άνετα. Το φεγγαράκι με κοιτάει, ένα αστέρι πέφτει δίπλα μου. Η καρδιά μου πονάει, μεσάνυχτα χώνομαι πάλι στην τρύπα μου. Την αγκαλιά μου δεν την έχεις ανάγκη, δίπλα σου δεν με θέλεις πάλι. Τα χεράκια μου δεν τα κρατάς και τα ματάκια μου δεν τα κοιτάς. Τα ματάκια μου δεν μπορούν, τα δάκρυα μου πέφτουν. Την αγκαλιά μου δεν την έχεις ανάγκη, δίπλα σου δεν με θέλεις πάλι. Τα χεράκια μου δεν τα κρατάς και τα ματάκια μου δεν τα κοιτάς. Τα ματάκια μου δεν μπορούν, τα δάκρυα μου πέφτουν. Κάθε βράδυ με ξεχνάς, κρίμα που δεν μ' αγαπάς. Μακριά σου εγώ υποφέρω, γιατί εγώ μόνο εσένα θέλω. Τα δάκρυα μου μόνο εσένα θέλουν.
Thank you for listening to The Songwriter Show. To keep the momentum going, head over to www.songwritershow.com and join our free music community of artists, songwriters, and producers. That's www.songwritershow.com.